In this episode, Ben Shapiro covers a range of current political and cultural issues shaping the American landscape. The discussion spans California Governor Gavin Newsom's stance on transgender children and its potential impact on his 2028 presidential ambitions, President Trump's challenges with economic approval ratings, the political tug-of-war over healthcare subsidies, redistricting conflicts in Indiana involving the GOP and Trump, immigration enforcement successes, sanctions against Venezuela, shifting foreign policy dynamics, and the recent Democratic win in Miami's local elections, analyzed with insights from Miami's Republican mayor. Ben Shapiro begins by examining Gavin Newsom's evolving position on transgender issues, particularly regarding minors. Despite Newsom's history of supporting pro-trans legislation in California, he has made politically contradictory statements, acknowledging concerns over competitive fairness in girls' sports while simultaneously affirming his desire to see more trans kids. Shapiro underscores that the prevailing public sentiment is largely skeptical or critical of transgender ideology applied to children, viewing it as a scientifically unfounded and ethically problematic approach. As Newsom prepares for a 2028 presidential bid, Shapiro warns that embracing a fully pro-trans platform risks alienating moderate voters and deepening Democratic vulnerabilities visible in the narrow popular vote margin of the 2024 election. The episode also addresses a recent social media clash between Elon Musk and Newsom's press office, which turned personal and highlighted the toxicity of mixing private family matters with political debates on contentious issues. Shapiro moves on to discuss President Trump's current struggle to maintain strong approval ratings on economic issues. Although the stock market and employment indicators are performing well, public sentiment around affordability remains weak, with Trump's economic approval rating hovering near 31%. Inflation and cost of living concerns continue to weigh heavily on voters' perceptions, despite claims that inflation is easing. Trump's messaging tour on affordability has yet to produce a significant boost in public opinion, complicated by political opponents using the issue as a point of attack. The podcast highlights internal disagreements over monetary policy and tariffs, with experts cautioning against injecting more liquidity into an already hot economy. The complex interplay between political narratives and economic realities suggests a challenging path ahead for Trump and the GOP. The episode delves into the ongoing legislative impasse over the extension of Enhanced Affordable Care Act, ACA, subsidies. Democrats propose a 3-year extension to prevent soaring insurance premiums, while Republicans offer a shorter-term, more market-oriented alternative focused on health savings accounts and deregulation. Both proposals have failed to advance in the Senate due to filibuster rules, leaving uncertainty for millions of Americans facing sharply higher premiums. Shapiro critiques Obamacare's design and the political strategy where Democrats create systemic problems only to demand larger government interventions later, ultimately pushing toward universal health care. Senate Democrats' rhetoric around the vote escalates stakes to life-or-death importance, which Shapiro argues is unhelpful and inflammatory given the heightened political tensions. Next, attention shifts to Indiana, where the Republican-controlled state Senate rejected a congressional redistricting plan favored by President Trump that aimed to increase GOP seats from 7 to 9. The vote represented a significant pushback by local legislators concerned about voter backlash and political fairness. Some lawmakers opposing the plan faced intimidation tactics, illustrating the high stakes involved in redistricting battles. Shapiro frames this as a bellwether for intra-party conflicts between Trump's national agenda and state-level Republicans who prioritize local interests. The episode critiques Trump's threatening rhetoric around withholding federal funds, viewing it as an overreach that could alienate voters and legislators crucial for advancing broader GOP policies. Shapiro highlights one of the Trump administration's relative bright spots: immigration enforcement. Under Trump's leadership, southern border apprehensions have dropped dramatically compared to the Biden administration's tenure. Despite political backlash and some disorganized congressional hearings involving immigration officials, the administration's firm stance on border security enjoys bipartisan recognition for effectively reducing illegal crossings. The discussion also touches on some public relations missteps from Democrats attempting to politicize deportations, with Shapiro clarifying distinctions between lawful removals due to criminal conduct versus blanket asylum claims. The podcast covers Trump's intensifying economic pressure against the Maduro regime in Venezuela, including recent seizures of tankers carrying Venezuelan crude and targeted sanctions against Maduro's associates. These moves strike at Venezuela's economic lifeblood, oil exports, and raise the possibility of deepening instability that could hasten regime change. Trump's criticism of the Biden administration's prior clemency and policy decisions is contrasted with the renewed aggressive approach under his watch, which has notably disrupted drug trafficking via sea routes. The episode situates Venezuelan sanctions within the broader context of U.S. efforts to counter geopolitical adversaries through economic means. Shapiro examines emerging complexities in the administration's foreign policy, emphasizing talks on nuclear disarmament with China and Russia. He expresses skepticism about the realistic prospects for denuclearization given these nations' entrenched geopolitical ambitions. The conversation explores the divide between a traditional peace-through-strength approach and a faction within the administration that may be entertaining spheres of influence compromises favorable to Russia or China. The episode critiques policy decisions such as permitting advanced chip sales to China, highlighting concerns about technology transfer and strategic competition. The ongoing stalemate and peace negotiations surrounding Ukraine are discussed with caution about security guarantees and the lingering threat of future conflicts fueled by insufficient enforcement or political resolve. In a segment featuring an interview with Francis Suarez, the Republican mayor of Miami, Shapiro explores recent Democratic successes in a traditionally mixed political environment. Suarez explains that the recent election was more partisan than typical and that demographic shifts, including increased registration among independents and Democrats, constrain Republican prospects. He identifies the theme of mandomification, a rise in socialism-themed politics driven by discontent despite objective economic success in Miami, as a challenge Republicans face nationally. Suarez argues that Republicans need to sharpen their focus on kitchen table issues like affordability, quality of life, and public safety to appeal to urban and Hispanic voters, whose support is vital but currently wavering. He underscores the importance of nuanced immigration policy and economic development in the hemisphere to counteract external influences and domestic pressures. Throughout the episode, Shapiro integrates discussions on cultural polarization, political messaging, and the importance of balancing ideological purity with pragmatic governance. The analysis stresses that both parties face internal tensions and external pressures as they navigate contentious issues such as transgender rights, healthcare reform, economic management, and immigration. The broader theme highlights the fragility of political coalitions in an era of heightened ideological conflict and the consequences of over-politicizing deeply personal and complex social matters.